Hello peeps, welcome to my channel, welcome to my studio, and welcome to this little class. We're going to make a flower cane today. You know, when I first started in clay and I first started caning, I really loved making flowers. Yeah, well, who didn't? And it's still a very popular theme if you're just starting. So today we're going to make a little purple flower with 5 petals. Yeah, okay, let's start. All right, so the first thing you have to do is condition your clay. I'm going to be using 1 ounce of violet and 1 ounce of white. I have a conditioning demo that follows, so if you need to, watch it. If not, you can skip it. Okay, peeps, so conditioning. Now, when you open the package, this is what your clay will look like. Now, I cut this in half to open it up. And what you see when you look inside will tell you something. Now, if a clay is far advanced, advancing is when the clay, over time, the ingredients start to separate the wet from the dry. And in very extreme cases, a block of black like this, if it's really, really advanced, you would cut it and it would just look all gray, completely gray. This, like this, see this right there? Yeah, well, the whole thing would look that way. So what this tells me is that this isn't brand new, fresh clay, but it also isn't really, really old clay either. So, yeah, so look at your clay. It'll tell you how hard you're going to have to work. Because, of course, the more advanced the clay is, the harder you have to work. Now, the first step for me is to take my acrylic rod and flatten. And this is also like, it's sort of like pre-conditioning. Because look, see that gray area? It's gone now. So it's almost as if the clay is returning to its more liquid state. I mean, of course, this isn't liquidy. It isn't like liquid clay or anything, but that's kind of what happens. I mean, look at it now. That's the area that was gray and dry, and now it is not. Now, I do this. See this area? Now, this is a little bit different. When these clays are packaged, well, it's a heat seal. It's a heat seal. Now, I don't pay much attention to it. Ordinarily, I would just work it in, and I think it would probably be fine. But there are instances where it's so hard that it's basically cured. It's basically cooked. This happens with all the clays. Any clay that is heat sealed like that, chances are it's going to happen at some point in time. All right, so this is perfect. It's just a little bit thicker than the thickest setting of the pasta machine. I am setting my machine on the thickest setting, which is 0. And I'm going to roll through, okay? Now, you can tell it's not conditioned yet. That isn't enough because, see, it's still got this light area here. So when it was flattened and smushed through the machine, it exposed some of what is happening inside. Inside, it's still dry. I just rolled up with my acrylic rod and sort of conditioned the outside. So now I have to condition the whole thing. I've reset my machine, skipping 1 setting. So I went from 0 to 2. Now I'm going to roll this through the pasta machine again. The direction I roll is not all that important, okay? Ta-ta. Now, it's still got that little bit of gray streaking like that. I'm going to reset my machine. This time, only 1 setting. I went to 3. Going to roll it through again. Here we go. Now, at this point, I'm going to start folding. See, it's got some cracks. And rolling. And folding. and rolling. Folding and rolling. And you can see I'm losing that gray streakiness. Folding and rolling, folding and rolling. Now, let's say you had clay that was extremely dry. Well, if you have clay that's extremely dry, you would not stop at setting number 3. You would reset to maybe setting number 5. I'll show you. Make the sheet thinner and continue the process at a much thinner setting, and that speeds it up too. And doesn't that make sense? The thinner the sheet, the faster that the inside of the clay is going to actually mix. So conditioning at the thickest setting takes longer than conditioning at a thin setting. Now, I generally stop at 3 because it's a more manageable amount of clay. In other words, if I rolled this through 3, well, I'll show you. I roll it through 3 and I'm dealing with only this much clay. I roll it through 5 and suddenly I have to handle something that's this big. 7, it would be even longer. Okay, so that is, in a nutshell, conditioning. Now, this clay is conditioned. Let me roll it back through a thicker setting, and we'll take another look at it. All right. So what happens with clay is that when it's conditioned, it develops a soft sheen. Rather than, see, this is kind of matte where I cut it. Well, you roll it through the machine, and once again, it's that sort of liquefying process. That's the way I think of it anyway, where the wet ingredients are absorbing the dry and everything's becoming like a uniformly mixed clay, which is what we want. This is closer to how it comes out of the machines at the factory. This is what happens when the clay sits around. I knew someone who described it as like pancake batter. Okay, so if you've ever made like pancakes, you mix the stuff up, and then if you let it sit there for a while, it starts separating, right? And you got to mix it up again. Well, that's what conditioning is. It's like remixing that batter. Okay, so let me continue. I will do the other half if need be. I mean, I don't know what you're doing. But there we go. That's conditioning. So here are my 2 colors, 1 ounce of white, 1 ounce of violet. Let me tell you, the white was softer than the violet, so I had to add some of this conditioning bar to the violet so that they more closely match in terms of their softness and suppleness. So now let's make a Skinner blend. I'm going to do a traditional, typical 2-part Skinner blend, which starts out with 2 right-angled triangles. I'm not even going to worry about that. Okay, so you can see I've almost got a right angle there. Let's do the same on the other side. Place one on top of the other, and now I will make my 2 cuts that create a 90-degree angle. Okay, so there's the 90 right there. Separate these like so. Take these apart and put them back together. Now, I cut these kind of strangely, but yeah, it's not too bad. Something like that. I didn't exactly cut 90 degrees, but I think it's going to be okay. Because all I have to do is kind of make it 90 degrees. How did I do that so badly? I can make Skinner blends in my sleep. and yet I did. Okay, so I want a square shape. Pretty good. All right, the first time I roll through the pasta machine, 2 colors must physically touch the rollers, this side or that side. I'm still set on the thickest setting of the pasta machine, which is what these sheets were set on. Here you go. Now I stretched it out. Now every time after I have to fold it the same way. The same color edge falls back on the same color edge. In this case, white on white, violet on violet. I'm going to take that fold and I'm going to place it on the rollers and roll through. Ta-da! So I just repeat this for a while. Same color, fold on the rollers, roll through. All right, so I will continue folding and rolling in exactly that fashion, and then you'll see what happens. Okay, here's my Skinner blend. Now, it might not be perfect, but for this particular cane, it doesn't have to be. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now thin it by placing the white edge on the rollers and rolling through. You want it quite thin. So the first, this is through the thickest setting, which is 0. Now I'm going to roll it through 2. Now 3. I'm going to roll this down to about 6. Okay. 5. Really thin. 5, and now let's roll through 6. Okay, so depending on your clay, the clay you're using, you may find that it's very difficult to do this. You may find that the clay sticks to itself badly and you can't roll it through this thin. If that's the case, if you think that's going to happen, then don't roll it this thin. Okay? Not necessary, I just wanted to do it. Okay, because I'd like a fine jelly roll. In other words, I don't want to see the revolutions so prominently. And the thinner the sheet is, the less you see them. Okay, let's roll this up. Okay. There we go. I'm going to cut off the ends so you can see what that looks like. Now, if the sheet had been thicker, of course, you would have seen these lines more prominently because they would be thicker. All right. Now, I'm going to shorten this a bit. Just a bit. Because what I have to do is flatten this. Okay, it's round now, but it's going to be flat. And it's just a tiny bit easier to do the rest of the petal if I make this shorter. Okay. So I'm going to flatten. 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 Now let's turn it this way, flatten it this way. And I'm actually going to start pulling it out this way. Okay. All right. Now, let's just flatten this guy on this side. to pull because I'm going to roll this into a jelly roll. Okay. Well, I think that's long enough. So let's start rolling. Just like this. From one of these thinned sides, just roll it up like so. Okay, so this is what we have so far. All right, peeps, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pinch along this dark side right here. See, that's kind of the darkest part of the petal. And I'm just forcing it kind of into a petal shape, you see. I'm just going to pull it out a little further just by pinching, like so. And then you can straighten that out. As you pinch on this side, you'll find that it starts spreading out, and of course this side is going to bow like that, but you can just correct it by taking and pulling it straight. All right. Now I think I'm going to wrap this with a very thin sheet of black, and I mean thin. So that's the next part. Very, very thin. So let me condition up my black and I'll be back. All right, peeps, so this is about a quarter of a package, or half an ounce of black clay. I'm going to roll this thin. Okay, so now I know it's long enough this way. I just need, I'm going to roll it through 6. Oh boy, skinny, skinny, skinny. I want thin. Okay. And the reason I want it very thin is the way this cane is put together. I will cut this, put the 2 halves together, so whatever this thickness is actually doubled in the finished petal. Make sense? Okay, I'm hoping this isn't too thick, because remember, it's going to be twice that. Okay, I'm going to roll this through 7. 7. Oh yeah, that's a lot thinner. That's better. Okay. Now, my black clay was a little bit stiffer, so I softened it again with a clay softening bar. You just have to remember that when you're caning, you want to make absolutely sure, or as close as possible, that your clay colors are the same softness. Okay, that's important for the best reduction. so that everything moves at the same rate. And you don't leave some colors behind and remove some others. By the way, the colors you leave behind are the ones that will be most prominent. The ones that move faster are the colors that you'll have less of in the finished cane. That's where your distortion comes in, right? Okay, so there is a very thin wrap. Okay, scrap. Now, if you find little air bubbles, just pierce them. This happens more when you wrap thin, as I just did. You know, to tell you the truth, it probably happens just as often. You just don't see it. But when you're wrapping thin, you tend to see all these air bubbles or any air bubbles that you've created. So maybe I'm fooling myself. They're there, they're just not as obvious. Okay. There we go. Just trying to even it out now because some parts seem to be a little bit thinner than others. I'd like for that not to be the case. Okay. I love clay. The one thing in my life that I've been able to do and never really lost interest in. I have a short attention span. All right, so let's put them together. Now this is one petal. It can be put together this way. Could be put together this way. You know, I'm not sure. There's a tremendous difference in the way they look. There's a little more light in the middle of the petal, so let's go with this. See this light area? It's a little more prominent than the other way. So now I'm just going to start pushing. Thinning a bit. No, I don't really want to flatten this side. I kind of like the roundness of this. So I'm primarily pushing side to side. And trying very hard to maintain the roundness of the petal edge. Is it going to matter? You know, I don't know. Might not, but it doesn't hurt to pay attention to these things. Okay, I made a purple heart. Let me condition more black clay because I want to fill this space here. Okay, primarily this space, because as I reduce, I will start flattening this side if I don't pack some clay between. Okay, so I took my black, what remained, and you know what? I have half a package left. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take this, I rolled it into a cylinder, cut it in half, like so. All right. Now, what I have to do now is kind of pull this out, like so, and round it, because I would like the petal to fit in here. Okay. That's the goal. Excuse me. I hope I'm not getting sick. I feel more stuffed up than usual. Okay, let's put that down here. And I'm going to take my little brass rod, kind of roll back like that. Okay. Let's do the same on this side. Try to cut some of this away, like so. Pick it up. How are we looking? Now I'm going to take and I'm going to lay this right there between the lobes. Just push it in there. Cut the excess off, and then start working the thinned edges down to the cane, like so. Okay. Now, this is not a perfect teardrop, is it? It's kind of, and then it goes, so let's make this a more perfect teardrop. And the way I'm going to do that is by taking this clay and rolling it through the pasta machine and returning it to a sheet shape, like so. And let's just see if I can do it this way. Because that little irregularity in the shape could start squaring everything off. In other words, when you push, the clay has to go somewhere, right? We talk about the clay going somewhere, and we don't necessarily know where it's going to go. So let me cut some of this off. Like so. Okay, that's better. See, fill that in a bit. It is better. Now, let's do the same thing on this side. Let me just first cut the excess away. I can't even see. I couldn't even see what I was doing. But there we go. Okay. Now I'm rolling just to smooth that edge in a bit. Same thing on this side. Okay. Very good. Now this is what we have so far. And this is basically our petal. I will reduce this and I'll have 6. Well, 5 would be nice. I get tired of 6 because it's always an even number and I prefer odd numbers. So maybe I'll aim for 5. Now the center of the cane, I'll tell you something. That's one of the best things about having a box like this, is because frequently you can find the perfect center in the box. Yeah, sometimes it happens. I mean, something as simple as that. This might be a little bit, oh, I kind of like the red and the purple. Here are a couple of just simple bullseyes. Here's a jelly roll that is kind of an ochre color and black. Could be just a plain old solid center. Now, I don't know what the size is going to be, because if I do 5 petals, I think it's a smaller center than if I do 6. Okay, so I'm going to aim for 5. And then we'll deal with the center later. Okay, so it's a lot of pinching and pulling, pinching and pulling, checking the ends. Just take your time, twist. Twisting is that activation thing. I find that twisting gets the clay moving even faster. Then pressure applied to the perimeter, something about just twisting and pulling. And of course you only do that when the cane is nice and soft throughout. If you try it with an older cane, you're going to have to really work at activating the clay inside. And that activation is usually accomplished by a lot of pressure that you exert from the outside. Kind of aim your energy to the center of the cane. It can take a while to get there, but that's what you do. Okay, so let me do more of the same, and I will reduce this out to about 10 inches. Maybe. Yeah, you know what? That would give me a 2-inch cane, wouldn't it? Yep. Okay, I'll be back. Losing some on the ends. Okay, my peeps, I trimmed the ends. I have 10 inches. 2 petals. Now I'm going to cut 2-inch segments because I want 5 petals. Yeah, 5. Petals. Okay, now we're going to put these puppies together like so. What kind of core, what kind of center do we want? And how big should that center be? Da, 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 da. Ba, da, da. Okay, so if I just get them together like that, that's the center size. What am I gonna do? could be as simple as this guy, just reduced down. I like it. Here's a little kind of orangey one, too small. But hey, that might be a nice one there. Like that. It's just a very simple bullseye. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going, because this is one of my favorite little teeny tiny canes. Now, the thing is, I'm plopping this cane, which is old, right in the middle of this fresh flower, right? Yeah. So I want to make sure that this little guy is not going to hang back on me. Maybe I should have started out with a bigger one. I think I'm going to do that, because by going through just the action of reducing this, I will soften it too, right? Because that's the thing, you know, you plop an old cane in the middle of a fresh cane, and that old cane, chances are, if you're not really careful, if you don't really pay attention, this little guy would hang back and just refuse to move. So by reducing it a bit first, I'm helping ensure that it doesn't hang back too terribly badly, if that makes sense. Because I'm applying pressure to the outside, making it more noodly, like that. And helping it along. Doesn't have that cold, hard feel to it. And this is nothing more than a simple bullseye cane. Just a lime green core with black, with turquoise, with black. That's all. Simple stuff. Just plop this baby in the middle. You seem a little small. Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Come on. I want to get rid of that excess. Like so. Let's get you back in. And arrange everybody, since everybody went kind of wonky. Wonkety. You don't have to go wonky. Turn you over, plop you back in. Okay, so let's press these guys right up against the center. This side is actually better than the other side. You guys can see I've got these two canes, which are a little bit darker, but you also know there's going to be waste. Hopefully not too terribly much waste, but there is going to be waste. Now, the thing about doing the fives is that you have more space to fill up in there, right? Yeah, do. Now, at that point, you can fill with a leaf. Maybe a couple of these will have leaves. I know I have leaves around here somewhere. But see, this leaf, I love this leaf, but it's so tiny. If I put that in there, it's going to look like, you know, a smear. It's not really going to look like a leaf at all. So I need something that's more simple. Let me grab something. I'm getting plugged up. Okay, here we go. All right. So this is a case where simple is not bad, because simple, you'll see. You see, just like that. So let's use some of these very kind of simpler canes. Once again, I think I'll go ahead and do a little bit of reduction from the big guy. And that way I'll also be kind of conditioning it. Now, I have several others that are like blends like that. That's a blend. This is also a blend, but look, there's too little of it. This I have tons of. So let me just rejuvenate this. It's a lot of twisting just to get it moving again, because this is quite an old cane. It's just a really basic nothing cane, to tell you the truth. I think I started out with a green cylinder, just around like this. I'll take this, even though this is a blend, but it was one of these numbers where you take just a cylinder of green and then you cut it in half. Then you insert black in between, mush them together, and then shape it. Okay, so that's simple stuff. Nothing difficult. Seriously, nothing difficult. I hope I'm not getting sick. Okay. So this is getting activated pretty quickly, pretty fast. Yeah, very much so. Okay. Okie dokie. So let's just insert one there. Cute, cute, cute. Now, do I want it that big? See, the bigger if the leaf extends that far, then I have to pack all of that around. Do I want to do that? Do I want this big field of black clay? You know what? I don't. I do not. This can just be a little tiny little hint of a leaf down there. So let me just reduce this so that it's a lot smaller and it doesn't extend so far beyond the flower petal. I mean, maybe for another class, I'd want to build up, you know, something around the outside. But my goal here was just to make something that's kind of simple and doable. Not too demanding. So that you guys don't feel like this is too challenging or it takes too much clay or it takes, you know, because that's another thing. The bigger I work, the more clay it takes for you to do the same thing. And I don't necessarily want you guys to have to be consuming mass quantities of clay. All right, so that's much better. I think that is much better. And I'm only going to do it in 2 so that it's not like really regular, like doom, 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 doom. I just want 2. And I packed my cane with black, but of course you guys, you know, if you, absolutely, you might decide you want to pack in a different color. Whatever you do, if you're a beginning caner, try to pack in a color that you don't have to mix initially, because you could get into a situation where you have to mix more and more clay, and the colors you mix are different. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but a lot of times it does. So if you're just starting with caning, then please make sure that you have enough of a color, and that if you run out of a color, then you will be able to reproduce that same color. Take it from me. I remember. It's been a long time, but I remember. I remember being very unhappy because I didn't have exactly the right color. Okay. All right. So this is looking good to me. I have to pack all of these spaces. What I'm going to do is pack them much like I packed this. Now, I could perhaps cut some of this away, but let's just proceed, okay? So I'm going to condition the rest of my black clay. This is not going to be enough, I fear. So I will get another block of black. You know, of course, we have a product. I have a product called Blackout. You can take your scrap clay and turn it black. Here it is, Blackout. You just take some of this, you mix it in your scrap clay, and it will turn your scrap clay black. How much? I can't tell you. It depends on what you start with. Okay, so let me condition this, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I decided just to condition and roll the clay I have into a cylinder. You know, you guys know how to, I'm assuming you know how to do this. You just roll a sheet and then you roll it up like that. All right. But I'm going to do this before I condition more clay, because maybe I don't need more clay. Okay, so clearly this is not the best angle. It's not too bad, but I'm going to need 2 pieces or 4 pieces that are quite a bit thinner to go side to side with these petals, right? Like so. This kind of thing is what happens here. So let's insert those and cut the excess away. I'm just going to squeeze like so and push it in. Then cut some of the excess away like so. Okay. And then try to work this down. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to pack around the leaves. So I'll be back. Okay, so I packed here, and you know what? The big wedges, I cut them in half, and they fit. I can't speak. And they fit perfectly in the remaining spaces, so I stuck them in there. Yep. Okay. Like that, just push it in. Just push, 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 push. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to push these guys in too, but I think what I'm going to do to these guys is split here. It's it down the middle. See, I just cut all the way down the middle and take these and swing them around like so. I think it's easier to pack this way if I just take and swing them around like that. If need be, I can fill that space. Like so. Turn it around. How are we looking on this side? Come on, get down. Pull them over. Repeat the same sort of taking the clay and just kind of pushing it up over the petal. Like so. So you see what I've got here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start trimming some of this away to see how much more I have to pack. This is not difficult. I'm just cutting black clay away. I'm not too afraid that I'm going to hit the flower at this point. Just lopping it away because, of course, there's all this extra clay above the petal. Okay, here we go. Now, this leaf sticks out just a bit farther. So, can I push it in to make it more round? Okay, so I have spaces like that. Now, do I want that much black around? Because that will kind of dictate what I do here. Nothing says that this flower has to be dead center in the circle. It doesn't. I can make it the circle where it's just, it cuts a little bit more here and it's a little bit broader at the top. That I could do. But I think, for my purposes now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill those little spaces. How do I do that? I'm going to take this, roll it into a sheet, and make another cylinder that I will cut in the same fashion. Divide, then divide. Kind of cut what I need. Okay, so here we go. All right. Oink, oink, oink. Like so. Now, let me try to get this point jammed down in there. Stand it up and trim the excess away. And let's really jam it in there. So that's basically how I fill these spaces. This guy will go into the next one. See, I've got this space, so I'll just take and push this in all the way down the length, really push it in, and trim away the excess. So I have filled it in. I find it easier than rolling a cylinder and then pinching, pinch, pinch, pinch. It's just easier for me to roll cylinders, cut, 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 and sort of cut what I need. I think that makes sense, right? So I have one more here that needs to be filled. So here we go. One last time. I find this just so much faster. And while it's not a race, of course, there are just certain tasks that you don't want to take any longer than they should, right? I mean, it's just a simple act of packing a space. Shouldn't be something that takes so much of your time. All right, so now I'm going to take my blade and I'm just going to go around and try to start cutting away somewhere I think there is an excessive amount of clay. Also, there are spots where I think I can probably smooth over so that spaces are filled like that. Let's see. The leaves made it just a little bit more complicated, but not too bad. All right, so now I'm going to take the rest of this black, roll it into a sheet, and I am going to wrap it. Okay, so I'll roll this through probably the thickest setting, maybe the thickest setting or setting number 1, and I'll be back. All right, so this has been rolled through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. Just gonna trim here and here. I'm still working off the same block of clay, which is kind of amazing to me. It is, it's kind of amazing to me. Just worked out that way today. As a matter of fact, I have leftover. Okay, now here is where I'm just trying to push all of this clay in this sheet into all these spaces. Okay, any spaces, because it was quite irregular, wasn't it? It was. That is not perfectly round. So now the goal here is to cut anything that's like sticking out or making it not round. Okay, actually what may make my life tiny bit easier is the use of a cutter to tell me what round is. Well, I don't have the right size. This is too small. That's kind of too small. Now, too small, so I just have to keep going and doing this the way I started out. Sometimes having something like a round cutter and you just press it onto the clay, and it's just kind of a guide to tell you how much and where you have to cut excess clay away. It's kind of hard because I'm not really looking at it. This is sticking out. It is. Well, that's not too bad. Now, is there too much black around the flower? Just gonna keep cutting. I like the cutting part. I do. You guys know that. I like taking my blade and whacking stuff away. I do. Subtractive. I'm subtracting clay. Then I have to flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. It's a good thing I like doing it. Now, I don't think anything can really go wrong at this point. The flower is so far into that black clay, I'm not going to cut into it. So I'm not worried about that. Okay, how are we looking? How are we looking? Not too bad. Not perfect, but not too bad. But look at this side. Wow. Now, maybe I should just push right there, and that's kind of a guide. You know, like don't cut at the line, just cut a little bit inside of the line. There's the original line. And I just kind of go around and try to cut the same distance from that little line. Like so. Okay. No, I don't. Nope. Yeah, you know what? That works better. At least you have some reference. If you just take this and then try to cut the same distance away from that original line. Right? Right. Helps. Now I'm just trying to make the sides nice and even. Oh, I think I cut too much away. Did I cut? Oh, I cut a little too much away. Let me put some of this back. Yeah, because you don't want to cut too much away. You don't want to leave too much. You also don't want to remove too much. All right, so let's just smooth this out. Take a look and see what we've got. I'm just going to cut at this end, which I think is not the best end. This is the end with the darkened petals. So there's the flower. Not bad. Not bad at all. Now, this is the better side, though. It is. So we have a nice little violet 5-petaled flower. Like so. Now, when I make these, sometimes I put stripes around the outside. Where'd my cane go? Oh, right before my face. See, little stripes like that. And of course, they come from striped slabs like this. And then you cut and you put it around like that. But we were not going to do that in this class. So let's reduce this a bit further. Yeah, it's kind of a cute little cane. I wanted to make a cane that wasn't 6-petaled. Most of the canes, most of the flower canes I see are 6-petaled. And as a matter of fact, this is 6 petals. And most of the flowers I make, I would have to say, have 6 petals. Nothing wrong with that, but they don't always have to be the same. Okay, so let's make sure that the center is moving. Everything's moving pretty evenly. I'm pretty pleased with this. The black packing clay, generally speaking, or the packing clay, in other words, all this clay around, generally that moves faster. Unless it's very hard. But this clay is not hard, so it's moving. So let's just pinch down the end like so. It's almost like plugging it. And I think I'm going to leave this side thick. So I have some cane that is in its original size, and then reduce some off of one end. All right, let's lop off some. And look at what we have. Oh, it's a cute little flower. Yeah. Aw. So there we go. These are my cute little earrings. I think that I will put stripes around before I do that. But they're kind of cute. Yeah, I'm not unhappy. Oh, I even like that. Scrappage. Not too much. Okay, peeps, some flowers. Now, I did take one piece and I added the black and white stripe around. And I like it, but I find that this one is a little bit too thick. Here, I'm going to show you another one. Here's another flower I made. This was actually the first one I made in red and white. And you can see how much finer the black and white is than this. And I think it's better. I think I should have done this to this one too. This is a little bold. Anyway, so that's it for today. I hope you liked the class. I hope you make lots of flowers. And until we meet again, I'm Donna Kato, and I'm signing off. Bye.